This is Lady Myya. I have Miss Elizabeth Power here with me, and she is an author and an entrepreneur. She is a wonderful educator. We love her. Her work focuses on alignment for everybody through trauma responsive lenses. Okay, so helping people, health, social services, and church folks around the world become traumatic informed. Okay, she actually works with corporate social services and faith. We love that. She's also, having 3 books, how is she doing it all? Like, I'm just trying to understand. But you know what? She's an amazing woman. She has 11 awards, okay? And then she has 24 publications. I don't know many people that could actually say that, but definitely a winner here, okay? We want to say hello to Miss Elizabeth. Hello, dear heart.
Hey, darling, how are you?
I am wonderful. And how are you?
Oh,
I
I am
am.
glad. I'm so
Yes.
glad to be here. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. I appreciate your response, dear heart. I really do. Okay, so we're gonna get to know Miss Elizabeth, if I may call you that.
You may indeed.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All righty. And so we're just gonna get started on the questions here. So when did you start your
1982.
1982? Wow.
Most of y'all were not even born yet, and maybe your mama and daddies might not have been born yet, but 1982.
I was 4.
Oh, okay, that's good.
All right, that is a very interesting time to actually start a business as a woman. That's for sure. That's amazing. I appreciate that. I appreciate the power that you had at that point to take and start something. Okay, so why did you start your business?
I got written up for being overproductive at the welfare department.
Overproductive. I can
didn't
see
realize,
that.
I didn't realize you could get in trouble for being able to actually do your work well. I didn't realize it was too much or not enough that could get you in trouble either way. And the bottom line was I made my colleagues look bad. And I didn't mean to. I was so naive. I thought that if you gave me a job, you knew how much time it took to do it. And you wouldn't give me a job I couldn't do in the time you gave me to do it.
Yes. I mean logically, that would just only make sense, but
Why would I ever think logically?
some people need to think a little more logically, that's for sure. All righty. So what experience made this your passion?
Well, a couple of things. My central focus has been really about change. And if you think about it, all trauma is change, but not all change is traumatic. Now, let me go back and talk about trauma for a second. Trauma is not being annoyed or uncomfortable or inconvenienced or upset or distressed. It's something so big that you fear for your sanity, your safety, your bodily integrity. It overwhelms you. You can't cope, you can't think, and you can't make sense out of stuff. It's the big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the event that can cause you to feel that way may be very small, maybe very little.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. Like you just dissected everything, that we could be like really dealing with during the course of our lives. Like that's the whole span there.
Let me go even further. You're dealing
Yes.
with it because of your mama and your daddy and all the people that came before you, because in scripture, across all the Abrahamic traditions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism being the oldest, it is written that the sins of the fathers are visited upon the children. I will bless them that bless me, and I will curse them that curse me for 7 and 21 generations. You're not going to want to hear this. But let me talk to you about a recent experiment that gives a good storytelling example of why this is so important. If you take a mother mouse and you put her in a cage where she's got nothing except a plate of cocaine and nothing, she will eat that cocaine until she can't anymore. If you put her in a cage with grass and other mice to visit with and play with and you leave the cocaine in there, she won't touch it when she's got positive, pleasant environment and social interactions. Okay,
Mm.
forget the cocaine. Let's go for the positive stuff. You put her in a lovely cage, where she, as if any cage is ever lovely,
Yeah.
but you put her in an environment that's reinforcing and enriching and rewarding and all those good things, and you give her, and you put a rose in front of her every day. She loves that rose. And one day you apply a mild electrical shock when you present her with the rose.
Mm.
How many generations of her offspring do you think will avoid the rose?
Most, if not all.
In 27 at least. Because the impact of that experience is written on the short tail of the, it's written on her DNA. It's called epigenetics. It's how we inherit things from our ancestors, but they don't have to express in us.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
And so the thing is that if your family has a history, you know, people of color have histories of historical trauma that's gone back generation on generation and century on century. And people may have, who are not people of color, who are people who look like me. Yes, I know I'm white. I've been white for 67 years. I can't help it. I'm white, you know. My ancestors had similar traumatic experiences of the Great Depression, the Reconstruction, their trauma during the Civil War. We were not slave owners, but we still fought. And we fought on the side of the Union. Some of my family did. Some of my families fought. There's anything that's happened, you can go all the way back to the first, to leaving the garden. And you can begin to recognize how the things that have happened in our generations before us affect what we believe and how we react today to things around us.
Mm.
And when you look at what happens, instead of translating it to what's wrong with people, it's, you know, a classic example with the Advent. And I have, my surname is Power, so I have thought a lot about power, and I come from a family with a long history of different kinds of activism. But my experience in mental health, I remember doing some research on the history of psychiatric drugs, psychotropic drugs. With the advent of drugs designed to quell the symptoms of schizophrenia,
Mm.
the diagnosis of schizophrenia increased in African American men dramatically, because most of the clinicians who were and still are, like me, white, couldn't stop and think about how might it be appropriate for a man of color to be afraid, to think that people are following him, to fear for his life, to hear, how might that really, what if he is hearing the voices of his ancestors? How might what he's experiencing be far more than a mental illness? How might it be a normal reaction to a lifelong pattern of being hunted, treated badly, expected, having bad things expected of him? How might what he's experiencing make sense in terms of his life,
Mm.
rather than translating it automatically to a mental illness whose symptoms need to be suppressed?
Mm.
Here's a story from out west in South Dakota, where I was working in a restricted psychiatric unit for girls once, teaching. And they had a little girl who came from a reservation, whose parents had been, they were arrested for meth making, and so she was removed. She came in and she'd been doing nothing but barking and biting and growling for 2 years, and she was only 5 when I met her.
Mm.
So they diagnosed her as having psychosis and put her on medication. And there are a lot of things wrong with that. Indian child, no medication approved for that, no sense of what might be going on. And they wouldn't let me see her because they were afraid she would hurt me.
Mm.
You know, and I'm thinking in my head, a child who is just learning to walk while her parents are making meth, and I asked them one key question: did they have res dogs? And did those dogs protect the family? And the answer was yes. And so I thought, well, let me go in and try something. So I got down on my back and went like a submissive dog, with my paws up, with my tongue out, panting. And sure enough, she comes in barking and biting and growling and held up by these 2 huge guys, you know. And finally, after about 5 minutes, she says, "Why are you doing that?" And I was immediately a goddess, because she spoke in English, not her native tongue. And I said, "So you'll play with me." They had completely forgotten that a child that age and that height would be eye level to the dogs,
Mm.
and might be more attached to the dogs than to her
Mm.
parents, because her parents were always busy.
Yeah.
She wasn't psychotic. She was doing the things she'd seen the dogs do to protect her family, to protect herself.
Mm. Wow, that is very interesting.
That's the kind of thinking I do with people. and helping them understand all the dynamics around that. So
Mm-hmm.
my passion for it is that most of us, including me, have been profoundly labeled and mislabeled most of our lives because of the things that people make up about the experiences that we have. And we now know that if you look at the impact of overwhelming experiences on people, we know what it does to folks. We
Mm-hmm.
know the places where people get shut down. And most of it is a natural reaction to something that shouldn't have happened in the first place. You can't have kids living in chronic stress and in chronic fear and not grow up without impairments. You can't learn when you're like that. You're too busy trying to survive.
True. Very
So
true.
it's my social activism and my rebellion against a system that's more focused on making us sick than helping us heal.
Mm. Yes. Wow. That is so profound. I mean, I guess I never really got the chance or the opportunity to really think about it in that way.
Mhm.
And just having those different social cues do kind of make you a little more either on edge or not, you know, but yet and still that social cue can make you act differently.
Yeah, it makes you act in a way that other people interpret as dangerous. I mean, let me talk about police shootings for just a minute, if I may. And part of this is I had the honor and the privilege of being the mentor in terms of the trauma-informed faith communities for a lot of the guys, a lot of the pastors in Minnesota that you may have seen on CNN and in the news the other week recently.
Okay.
And I also had the honor to develop a program with the Justice Resource Institute on the neurobiology of trauma for law enforcement advocates, mental health, and prosecutors. And here's what we know. How might it have helped someone's brain to flee as soon as they see a gun come out?
Mm.
I don't mean to be tacky. If I could run, you know I'd be running. So for me, as somebody who the police are trying to stop for whatever good or ill reason,
Mm-hmm.
running is a natural response. You have to be able to
Fight or
override
flight.
your brain's reaction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if your people, or if people like you have a history of being shot when you run or when you stay, how can you stay? So the
Right.
double bind for young Black men is terrifying, and for people who are deaf, and for people with physical disabilities like me who can't run. The double bind is horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I should be running, but I shouldn't, because this is a person in authority with the gun. And if I run, they might shoot me. And if I stay, they're going to shoot me.
Mm-hmm.
There's no out. Now let's look at it. Oh dear, help me. From law enforcement side, they
Mm-hmm.
have the same history as we do.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise. Their brains are no better regulated than ours. So they see something that comes at them, and they see something that runs, and they're scared, and they go stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them go I'm not going to talk about the systemic stuff because that's a much bigger conversation than we can have. But most of the things that we've designed to try and protect us, and I'm saying that collectively, are things that have so many double binds that we're killing each other, if not physically and mentally and emotionally, certainly spiritually, because you can't, the minute that I judge someone defective because they're different, either
Mm-hmm.
because of where they come from or how they think, maybe because they've got a criminal history, or maybe I've known them to be a liar, or maybe they've slept out with somebody and I thought that's not cool and I don't think that's cool. But the minute I judge them defective because they're different is the minute that I cannot want for them what I want for me. And if I'm a person of faith, that first and second commandments right there, love your neighbor as yourself. I can't want for you what I want for me if I think you're less than. So this is the stuff I play with.
Man, I need to have a whole nother conversation with you, my dear.
Okay.
Because like you said a lot of stuff. I mean, you said everything that I'll say for myself that I have thought about. And I may have not had like entirely the whole picture, but the picture you painted just now, just basically you basically filled in a lot of gaps for me.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate that. Definitely. Okay. Because I ain't going to start crying on my own show. That's not going to work.
I've already done that several times today. Just go right on.
Alrighty. So we know what your passion is. And so you basically explained why you have been doing this for as long as you have and why. And so, like, what are your goals as far as the people that you influence?
Well, let me add another twist to this. Because I've been building this piece of the business for the last 20 years. Before that and during that, what I've done to fund myself in the process, because I'm a bootstrapper, is I have been doing what's called instructional systems design. I'm an instructional designer, and I write competency-based courses for people. So that if you hire me to write a course for you, once we agree on the objectives, they should be able to do what you say you want them to be able to do when they get done. So I'm an educator, and that's really all I've ever been, but I didn't want to be an educator. I used to tell my mother I would rather be nibbled to death by ducks than teach for a living. I now have a master's in education from Vanderbilt to Peabody. Believe me, I didn't see that coming. I barely got through undergraduate school, barely got through it. My goal for the people I influence is to help them understand that the things that happen to us, the histories that we bring to work, to our health care, and to our faith communities are things that can hold us back or dramatically advance us depending on what we do with them and how we treat each other in the workplace and at home and in the congregations. That when we begin to frame things through an understanding of the impact of what happens, we begin to see that many of the things that we're doing, are just don't make sense, and that it's fairly easy and profitable to make the changes that make us trauma informed.
Yeah. That is it. I think it's cheaper to actually try to get to the problem, or at least to the root of it, rather than just trying to keep band-aids on it all the time.
It is, and here's a challenge with that. You can spend, as I did, years in counseling and therapy trying to unravel that ball of yarn. It's still in the rearview mirror. You can't change it. You can't bring that ball of yarn to the present. What occurred to me some time ago is that when we have changed thinking, which takes practice, you got to exercise that muscle between the ears, changed action, which takes repetition, and changed feelings. I'm still learning what different feelings feel like, even at my age. I don't mean to come across as the old sage, but I'm drawing Social Security. I'm retirement age. I'm still learning stuff that I think I should have known when I was a kid, but I was too busy trying to survive, and I missed it. So I no longer recommend digging around and analyzing and picking apart your past. I recommend 3 simple things to start with that make a difference in everybody's life. And one is recognizing the strong interconnections that you have that are positive, that you can call on. Like, I see that you're wearing a piece of jewelry. I'll venture a guess that was a gift from someone. And when you think about that piece of jewelry, or when you handle it, that necklace you're wearing, you probably remember them and feel warmth.
Yeah.
But how often do you do that to soothe yourself? And are you aware that that's self-soothing?
Yeah, I didn't think about it.
And
It's been a while. Yeah.
you have family recipes.
Right. Oh,
I mean,
wow.
there's so many things we do that are self-soothing, and most of us miss the self-soothing piece if we grow up in a life that is turbulent or chaotic or difficult because of homelessness or economic injustice or abuse or neglect or medical crisis or natural disaster or systemic stuff. So looking for the positive interconnections we can call on strengthens the container of the self so that the stuff doesn't affect you as much. You can either try to tear it down, or you can strengthen the walls.
Yeah. Wow.
The other is learning to manage feelings. That's a doable thing. In fact, make a note of this name, because you'll want to direct your readers to this. There are charts of where people feel feelings in their body. And it's from if there's an article, if you go out, if you search for that phrase and you find a Wired magazine image, it will show you 16 images that look like thermographics of where over 500 people, a combination of Taiwanese and another very non-related cultural group from the Nordic countries, where they described feelings in their bodies. By feeling, so you can see a map of what it looks like to feel, where people feel heat for anger and where things feel cold, and for happiness. It's from the Newman Lab. That's the part that's hard to write down. It's NUUMAN. M as in Mary, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, A as in Abel, A as in Abel lab. And the science they've been doing is showing that there's a remarkable similarity in where people from all different places feel different feelings in their bodies. If you grew up not feeling your feelings because it wasn't safe, you don't know that.
Mm.
And so working on those things and working on a sense of feeling worthy of life, just life, helps a lot. Those things begin to build you up. And when you build yourself up, the stuff that has been holding you back is no longer so effective. It doesn't impact you as much.
Wow.
Like here's an example. I can't read numbers. And that may surprise you, but I'm unable to read numbers. So imagine what that means for me financially.
Right.
And I didn't know that until I was in my 40s. So you can't imagine, or maybe you can, how badly I messed up my own retirement and everything else.
Oh,
But can I think? I can think. Can I write all day long? Can I speak? I can hold a crowd. I can preach for days, but I can't read numbers.
wow.
So I used to spend all my time trying to fix I can't read numbers. When I hired a bookkeeper and worked on what I can do and can do well, things turned around dramatically.
Yes. Wow. The empowerment, definitely. It helps. Wow. Like you don't hear that. You don't hear that many people are struggling with something like that because, you think just a normal thing. Oh, everybody should have did this while they were in school or, I can't even tell you how many people could not read in high school with me.
Because they could pass.
Yes.
And I
Or
passed.
they would act up and and the teachers would shift them out.
Now let me ask you another key question. How did it help them to misbehave?
It helped them get out of school.
And they didn't get out of school because they didn't like school. They wanted to get out of school because they were being shamed by their own inabilities. So it helped them feel emotionally safer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they probably got a bunch of D's in school. Let me tell you, when you get a D, you don't have anywhere else to go. Why bother? Why try? The schools that have gone to now and not now, or now and not yet for grading are doing a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think inner city schools are so, so overpopulated already. And so it was just more so like, I don't have the time to teach just you because it's not just you. So now it's just, well, I'm going to do what I can and ship you off and hope that somebody else has more time for you.
Which is not what teachers want to do, but it's systemic, it's structural, just like racism.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, yes, yes. Whew, honey, got the hair standing up on me like, you are so just powerful, like just the way you said things and how you said things, and you're just the way you were able to kind of paint the picture for someone to actually be there in your brain understanding what you were saying. And you hear so many different people that are educational people. They have this vast array of words and different things like that, and they get to the point where, oh well, I'm so educated, I'm this, I'm that, and then it's like, but not everybody's educated. Let's not forget the people that need it the most.
I might teach at a medical school, but I'll tell you this, anybody who's got a PhD probably can understand what I say. And they can take it to whatever level they need it. But my neighbors, and I love my neighbors. I love my neighborhood. Don't get me started on my neighborhood. I love my neighborhood. Most of my neighbors, we do have one MD, but most of my neighbors didn't even get out of high school, didn't make it out of high school. Some of them got a little bit of college. Some of them got a GED. But if I can't talk to them, I'm so isolated from humanity. And if I'm not willing to speak in a way that they can learn, I'm saying that they're not worthy of my time.
That's
Commandment number 2. That's stigma. That's an ism. That's an intellectualism of the worst sort.
Wow. I just want to pick pick apart your brain at this point. Like,
You can't do that today. I got stuff I got to do today, but you can later.
like, you can't put this together back fast enough. Okay, so are there any projects in the works?
Oh my goodness, yes, 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 yes. I just started, and we're still enrolling this coming week, a 5-week program on resilience and self-care, which go hand in hand. And it's a lovely program. The people that have been taking it have been telling me that it's absolutely worked miracles for them in terms of ease and peace and calm and comfort. And that program, it's a simple program. It's $189, books, replays, the whole 9 yards. That's there. We've got a change event coming up. It'll be virtual in September. That will be a 2-day retreat for people to really dive deep in making changes and in the dynamics of change. And that's one of the best ever. And then we've got the sacredness of trauma, which is a lot of fun. And that's for the people in the pews, to learn just the basics of trauma-informed thinking. Let me ask you a trick question. If you think about how we define trauma a little bit earlier, what is the first story that might be of trauma in scripture, in your scripture? The first one. And guess what? That same story is in the Quran, and it's in Torah, and there's a similar story or a parallel story in Buddhism, and there's a parallel story in Hinduism. So whatever.
I'm studying Hindu. I like that.
Yeah. So, you know, so we help people take a look at what stories are there that are traumatic, and how might people today relate to those? What might people today experience as traumatic? And what do we, you know, how does the Holy help us heal? And what about the generational stuff? You know, what can we do as a congregation to help each other heal? Because congregations are not equipped, unequivocally I say this, to hear people tell their stories. And that's because we get in a space and we start telling our stories. You know, I come to you, and the first thing I do when I meet you is I say, hi, my name is Elizabeth, and my husband beat me for 30 years. Bam, there it goes. And your brain's knocked off center. And you stand and you listen politely, and you never speak to that person again, because you know they're going to treat you like a dog with a fire hydrant. We do that. Or we set up rules that say, if you've got a history of trauma, you can't be in leadership in this congregation for X years. They didn't say that about Jesus. They didn't say it about Muhammad. And they didn't say it about Siddhartha when he was a prince. And they just, you know, so we set the rules up without understanding. We don't have the capacity to hear the stories. When we have a grounding in our faith about the stories and how they relate to what we know from good research, and we set up a container in a congregational setting where people can tell stories, so we make it a sacred process. It's not as hard on anybody, and it's a lot more healing. And that's a great program. I've been teaching that all over Minnesota.
Ooh, I like that. So, okay, well, if that is not available to a person that just happens to go to church?
Well, we have a coaching application for that, but it's like $997. And frankly, if you get 20 people together, it gets a whole lot less expensive.
Okay.
You know, the individual rate for that is $175 a person for a 6-hour program plus the materials. And it's available in printed form in Spanish and in English, although I'm not fluent in Spanish, but we use a translator. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
And we have it in written Somali as well.
Ooh, that's interesting. Oh, wow. You are busy. How are you?
I got business to do. I'm getting old. I got to get it finished before my time comes.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm super excited. Okay, you guys, you have to go to her website. It is E. Powers and Associates.
No, I love you, but you got to drop that S. You don't want to.
I know that S keep getting me.
Tell you what, let's send them to elizabethpower.com.
elizabethpower.com.
Yeah, that's easier. It's a lot easier.
One power, not two.
Not two.
Alrighty, everybody knows how to spell Elizabeth. Don't go there. Because it was Elizabeth Taylor, there was Princess Diana, it was Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So we know. Okay. So is there anything else you would like to say to my audience?
I would like to tell your audience how deeply grateful I am to have spent this time with you. Yes, please, more. Let's do it again. And thank you all. And please, you all, take good care of yourselves. You're the most precious thing there is.
Yes, yes, you are, you are. And this is the reason why I do what I do. I don't want you to be locked in a box. I don't want you to feel like you're so alone that you can't do anything else. I want you to be empowered as well. So please, if you have any questions or anything like that, I'm Lady Myya across pretty much every platform. You can always, put in a message. I will get to it. And if you have questions for the power, I will definitely get back in contact with her and let her know that the masses want a recap on some questions. So that would be wonderful, and I would be honored to do so. And thank you so much. I count it all a blessing that you were able to share your time with me.
Thank you so much. Have a fabulous and great weekend.
Take care. You have a great one, dear.
Okay.